And now, for your listening pleasure, here's Polizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Join Robert and me May 2nd to 4th in Phoenix for Creator Economy Expo. When you register at cex.events, use code TOM to save 25%. We'll see you soon.
Well, hello, my friends. This is Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 318 of This Old Marketing for Monday. Yeah, that's right, Monday, April 4th, 2022, because, well, my partner has something to do that's just better than hanging out with me. And with me, as always, is my partner, my good friend, my colleague, and a guy who's definitely not Grammy winner John Batiste, Mr. Joe Polizzi. Did you see his performance at the Grammys?
I saw nothing,
John Batiste?
so you're going to have to tell me. I was doing stuff.
It's hard to describe how much I love John Batiste as a musician. I mean, that album is, his
John
many albums,
Batiste
but
is amazing, but I didn't see the performance.
Oh my gosh, it's just freedom. You know that song, right? Yeah, he did that at the Grammys, and it was absolutely.
Okay. Well, after this, I will.
Yeah,
but
just YouTube it.
To your first comment, at least I'm scheduling a podcast with you. Like, I could say, forget it, I'm done.
Well, that's
I'm
true.
done.
That's
and
true.
You say, yep, I knew Polizzi was going to quit again. Like, you could have, but I didn't. I'm not doing that.
You didn't.
I didn't quit. I didn't quit on you. I'll never quit on you.
Is that the bar that we're shooting for these days? Is that you don't quit? Like, every week I should just be.
Yeah,
happy
I'm going to
that
say, hey,
quit?
I need to do the podcast at this date at this time, or I'm quitting. That's exactly what it's come to.
I see. There's you've now changed your middle name to Diva. I think is that.
It's always been there. It's
always been Diva. I see.
Yeah, you know how it is. Like,
I do.
You do all the work, and I take most of the credit. And that's it's worked really well for us for the past 15 years.
It's worked really well for one of us for the past 15 years. That's for sure.
But it has been interesting and fun for you, right? I mean, there's that. I mean, it hasn't worked out financially well for you, but it's worked out.
No, that's probably a great way to put it. Yeah.
Like it feels good that we get to talk to each other. We're good friends. Like that's.
Is that what they call it?
Is that not
really?
Is that not bonus enough for what?
It is.
Anyways, let's talk about you. Let's talk about your jet lag. How was London?
You know, here's the thing. I absolutely adore that city.
I love London.
It is. Oh my gosh, I do love that city so much. It's really one of the only cities in the world besides the one that I live in that I would absolutely move to in a heartbeat. And the weather was spectacular, and everything in London was spectacular, as it always is, and the traffic was awful, which is the way it always is, and it was just great. It was great, and interestingly, so I think I said on the last week's show that I brought my wife with me to enjoy some of the city, and we did, of course, and I fared for my first international trip in literally 2.5 years. Really my first business trip in almost a year and a half. Well, other than Content Marketing World, almost a year and a half. I fared very well. My jet lag was really just non-existent.
Just kicked right back in.
My wife, on the other hand, my wife, on the other hand, knew not so much. Yeah, she suffered a bit, but it worked out all right. It worked out.
And you told me before we started the podcast, you gave me some really good news. You said that COVID is over in London, which is wonderful to hear.
There it is.
That everything's back to normal.
It is. Oh my gosh, it's a little weird, but I'm not going to lie. I was happy about it to see everybody's faces, noses, and chins. There's not a mask in sight there. They were telling me on the as the driver we were driving in from the airport. They were like, if you see somebody in a mask, it's a tourist or someone who doesn't live here, because nobody in London is wearing masks. And that's true. You go into everything from the most crowded pubs to the restaurants to the internal of any shop, and no one is wearing
But did
a
you
mask.
say that vaccination was mandatory? Like 100% or no?
Well, they have a much higher rate than we do. They have their vaccination rate, plus booster is, vaccination plus booster, if I'm remembering my numbers, and I may get this number slightly wrong, I believe is in the high 60s, low 70s. And then double vaxxed is in the mid 80s, like mid to high 80s, like 88% or something. It's crazy high in terms of the number of people who have been, where in the U.S. we sit at 60% of double vaxxed and 40% who have been vaxxed and boosted. It's it's a very different situation.
Yeah, but you were telling me about the airport that you don't have to wear masks in the airport or on the airplane.
You don't have to wear. You don't have to wear a mask in Heathrow, and you do have to wear a mask on an American flight. Anything that's going to or from.
But if
America,
you were flying, let's say
wearing
from London to Milan or something like that, would you have to wear a mask?
I believe no.
Wow.
I believe you do not have to wear a mask. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe that you do not have to wear a mask on any on any flight originating in London and going somewhere else that doesn't require.
How about shoes? Do you have to wear shoes? Is that shoes and
you do
shirts?
have to wear shoes.
You have to wear those
shirts.
Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't know how far they were
Absolutely.
taking it, because if they're
Well,
partying
the
like
English,
it's
they'll take
19,
things only so
if they're
far.
partying like it's 2019, then hey, let's see what happens, right?
Oh, they're partying like it's 2019. There's no doubt about that. It is back. Thursday nights, because Thursday nights, of course, in London are pub night, when you basically, every pub is spilling out into the streets with people, just with pints in their hands. I mean, that's all back 100%. I mean, it looks like London of 2019 as far as I could see. It was weird, and also I'll say it, just very comforting. It was very nice. It was very nice to be there. And the only thing that was even a bit disconcerting was the fact that I had to take a COVID test before coming back. So that's always in your head, right? I wasn't worried about catching COVID. I was worried about testing positive for it and not being able to come home, which was,
Well, what was it like leaving your wife in London? I mean, what was that? Okay? I'm just kidding. I kid.
Well, that was the weird thing. We talked about it. Well, we talked about it.
You had a plan?
We were well, what happens?
If somebody...
We definitely had a plan.
Would somebody
Yeah,
have gone? Would you
plan.
stay together as a team?
I would have
Rose?
stayed. She would have gone. If I tested positive and she didn't, she would have come home. And if she tested positive and I didn't, I would have stayed. Yeah.
Well, that
That's
makes
the
it
way
because
was
it was Thursday and it was pub night. So you were,
well,
come on. You were hoping.
yeah.
I'm just kidding. I shouldn't talk.
Which
It's
is
not funny.
Which is funny because that's the way it is, right? Because if you test positive for COVID, you don't have to self-isolate in the UK. You just bummer, you tested positive.
Man.
And you can walk around with no mask if you felt like it. So, they have definitely concluded that it's endemic now and it's done.
You know what? I don't know what to say about that. I mean, you know how I feel. I feel if you're vaccinated and you're boosted, you're fine. Whatever. Good. We're all good. We're all good in the hood. Let's get down to partying a little bit. Let's have a drink.
Yeah.
Do something. But,
Well.
yeah. This is gone. Let's just end the show. I'm done.
Yeah.
Seriously, though.
But that was a downer. That was a
No,
downer.
and it's not a downer. Seriously, we talked about this before. You and I are working way too much. We're working
Way too much.
And we're going to have to cut some things out of our lives that are not necessary. I don't know what those things are. I don't know. It's not this podcast. We're going to keep this podcast going. But everything else is on the table,
how
folks.
great it is for my career. It's been such a boost for my career and my financial situation that we got to keep it.
What's so strange is because that we've got some longtime listeners. Somebody sent us a note this week, something about I'm your fifth listener.
Yeah.
When was that episode? That
love
was
that.
I don't know. That was like 9 months ago. I'm like, oh man, we love our listeners. They're
I love our listeners. I mean, thank God they put up with our nonsense.
Remember
every
that
week.
note we got a couple months ago from that wonderful woman who basically
and she said,
lambasted
"Don't
us.
stop deprecating yourselves. Yeah.
Stop being negative. You need to be more positive."
About your audience. She wasn't. To be clear, she wasn't saying stop being negative about everything else. She was just saying stop being negative about the size of your audience, right? And I think we can.
I think we can. I think we absolutely can. So, and we have some. It's interesting that we're recording on Monday as some of this news comes out because
Which
you
is
have
just
some breaking
4 days.
some breaking news.
We do.
Sort of, right?
We do have some breaking news. So by the time that this emerges on Friday, as it normally will, who knows what will have happened since then? But yeah, we've got a bunch of stories to talk about. The breaking news that Joe is mentioning there is, of course, the Twitter stock has gone up almost 30% because of one purchaser. And we'll get to that in just a moment because that is taking the financial desks certainly by a storm as we record this. We'll talk about podcasting because why not? Let's get all meta and talk about podcasting on a podcast. And we'll talk about YouTube, really thinking about launching a complete podcasting channel. And we'll also talk about podcast growth. Has it hit a ceiling? And then we'll talk a little bit about NFTs because, that's what we do these days. But a really interesting thing, which is a new technology that's not going to call an NFT an NFT, sort of extending a discussion we had last week about why NFTs may be here to stay, but they may not be called NFTs any longer. And then we'll finish up before we get to rants and raves with about journalists and should they have a personal brand or not. A fun, interesting debate going on online. I'm going to rave a little bit about an interview from McKinsey with a friend and family of the show, and certainly a friend of mine that I've known for a number of years, Kathy Hackle. And you are going to, I guess you're going to rant? Is it a rant?
No,
or
it is not.
commentary,
It's a rave / commentary, actually. And then a quick commentary about the Grammys, too. So, which I didn't tell you about.
All
But
right.
nothing shocking. Nothing crazy. Nothing that'll slap you in the face.
So basically, after I'm done, you can just turn it off.
Because it's not going to matter anymore. And
That's
by the
right,
way,
it
we
just
are
won't.
recording. See, we don't usually record this late. We usually record in the morning. This
That's
is
true.
late for me. I already had dinner. So, Lord knows what's going to
you've
happen.
had dinner, and if I didn't have something else to do, which I unfortunately do after this, I would actually be partaking of a good tequila right
You have
about
something
now.
else
But
to
I
do
do
after
actually
this?
have.
Really?
I do. I mean, it's only 4:00 here, so I have
Jeez,
to.
I
gotta do
literally
work.
thought that you didn't work past 2 p.m. Eastern time.
Oh no!
No, not 2 p.m. No, 2
my
p.m. your
friend.
time.
Oh no! Oh, I do declare, I do declare, my work
I
does
thought
not
your
finish.
hours were like 6 to 2.
6 to 2. No.
Okay, whatever.
They're these days they're more like 6 to 8 or 6 to 6 at least.
That's sad. That's
It's
not-
it's the story of my life. It's how I afford to do this podcast. I do it because I love it, not because I'm.
You
doing
love it. You
anything
said
with
that with your teeth were grinding as you were saying that. Okay, what do we got? What's the news?
Let's look at the first story, which is, as Joe mentioned, breaking news here, and it comes courtesy of CNBC. CNBC. Twitter shares are up close to 27% after Elon Musk, we know that guy, takes 9% stake. Can you imagine buying that? I mean, can you do that on an Ameritrade account?
I wonder if that was all. Did that all happen one time? Yeah, he was using Robinhood, and he put together the 73 million share order.
That's right. What do you? I mean, can you even do that? I mean, do you have to call your stockbroker for that? How did that even happen?
I think that's a special deal. I think that's that's not.
You gotta do
those
something.
things, I would love to know though.
Do you have
now
to
I really
call
want
the
to know. I didn't
anyway.
think about that, but I want to know how he got the 73.48 million shares. But please proceed with your news breaking.
No, well, the story opens up by saying outspoken Tesla CEO Elon Musk, as the most understatement of the year winner, says it took a giant stake in Twitter that makes him the largest outside shareholder in the social media stock, not long after criticizing the company for what he said was its failure to uphold the tenets of free speech. Musk now owns, as Joe just said, 73.486 million shares of Twitter, which represents a 9.2% passive stake in the company, because remember, this is just, normal shares that you or I could buy, folks. According to Securities Exchange Commission 13G filing released Monday, the stake is worth $2.89 billion based on Twitter's closing price on Friday. The purchase comes less than 2 weeks after Musk criticized the company, polling people on Twitter about whether it adheres to free speech principles. Given that Twitter serves as the de facto public town square, failing to adhere to free speech principles fundamentally undermines democracy, Musk tweeted in a tweet that was clearly written for him and not by him. Late last month, Musk also said he was considering building a new social media platform. Maybe he should just take over Truth Social.
Is that still going?
Anyway.
I don't know.
They just had two major executives quit.
I didn't even think they actually launched it.
Oh, well, they really haven't yet. I mean, it's still beta.
I got to tell you, not a good sign when the executives quit before the product is released.
True.
Never a good sign. I don't know if that's ever been a good sign.
When it's your CTO, I think it was too. I think it was the CTO that left.
Yeah, there goes the server.
Not a good sign.
You have to call GoDaddy and see if you can get that hosted somewhere else. Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Well, that's really all I have. Yeah. That's all I have. Who knew?
Who knew
that Devin Nunes wouldn't be a good CEO of Truth Social? But what do you think about this whole thing? Here, look. My quick take is this is Elon being Elon, right? He's just. When you have a man-child that is ostensibly just a billionaire and can throw around $2.89 billion without really thinking about it, this is him trolling. All he's doing is trolling Twitter, as far as I'm concerned. But do you think there's anything more to this?
Well, my first instinct is to, believe it or not, agree with you that I think this is a little pet project thing for him. That it should be known that this is the platform that Elon Musk uses. Elon has 80 million followers and tweets memes all the time and pokes fun at people, makes fun at things. So now has 73 million shares. By the way, 4 times the amount of founder Jack Dorsey. Think about that. He's got 4 times the amount of the founder of the company. So, of course, Dorsey's checked out. Not anything. I really think this shouldn't have happened in the first place. But why did it happen? It happened because since Twitter's IPO, the stock has done nothing. Twitter stock it's basically zero. If you bought at the IPO, you've made nothing return on Twitter, which is almost impossible to think when you look at Apple and Facebook and all the other companies. Snap has done amazingly well compared to, and we used to beat on them all the time about how horrible they were, and they've done better than Twitter. So he was able to get in at this price, inexpensive price, if you will, based on whatever the growth is, because it's never done anything. So the fact that you have a billionaire coming in, say, I'm going to add a little bit to this. So that's the one theory is, we realize he's just full and it's a pet project. But I was listening to a CNBC 5-minute segment with downtown Josh Brown. I don't know if you know him, but
I do.
Okay, so Josh Brown, analyst, he's on CNBC all the time, said that Elon Musk is good friends with a director who's a director on Twitter from Silver Lake Financial, which is large venture funding company and financial company. Yeah. So the question was brought up as a big what if, maybe Silver Lake and Elon and friends get together and take Twitter private. Because
No.
It's worked for the New York Times. Well, the New York Times is
I'm
public,
not saying
but
it wouldn't
private.
work. I'm just saying that this isn't the way to do it. That's not the way to do it.
How do you know this is the way?
If you're going to do it, you go in and you get controlling.
This is why not? There's no one way anymore.
Well,
there's no way. It's not like we're watching The Mandalorian that this is the way. There's no way. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean,
this is the way. This is the way.
This is the way. This is not the way that this happens, right? I mean, I just don't think that. I mean,
okay, wait. No,
well,
here's the thing. So we'll wrap. This is just. It was not anything that has to do with content creation, but Twitter has the market cap of Olive Garden. It's the same size as Olive Garden, and yet. Just think how
it's funny because it's true.
It's true.
That's what it's.
And think how much power Twitter has. I mean, Twitter is when you look at like the most powerful media companies on the planet by voice, if you will, Twitter's right up there at the top.
Yeah, it's true,
and it's the size of Olive Garden.
It is true.
There's some disconnect there. Like Twitter obviously hasn't gotten their stuff together to figure out a revenue model that can make this thing work. Well, could Elon do any worse? I don't think so. So maybe he feels like I'm going to come in this way and I get something. There's talk that he may get a board seat. He hasn't asked for anything.
Yeah,
he hasn't asked for anything.
I mean, he may.
Yeah. So we don't know. But
yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see. And those of you who had Twitter getting acquired by Elon Musk in your 2022 bingo card, congratulations on that. Having a huge share in that. Anyway, just a very interesting story to find. And who knows? By the time this actually comes out on Friday, there may be much more information on this. But I think it's going to be something to watch.
But did you also see there was a secondary article that he might be in trouble with the SEC because he didn't claim this quickly enough in SEC
you know what?
stuff?
If I see right, I mean, throw up the big whatevs sign there. I mean, I'm so tired of the headlines that say so and so fill in the blank, whether it's Trump, Biden, Musk, Zuckerberg, anybody may be in trouble with some governmental organization that may file charges at some point. And just never do. I mean, it's just, how many times has the SEC threatened Elon Musk and just never done anything? I mean, it's like,
I thought he did have to pay one penalty for something. Didn't he have to?
Yeah, and he's already wanting it back. He wants it back now because it was some insider thing that he got sort of fined for, and now he wants it back, and he's gone to court to get it back, and all that. It's just.
It's such a weird thing.
Our regulatory agencies are toothless.
But it's such a weird relationship that Elon Musk has with the U.S. government because he's received so much money from the U.S. government through grants. It's obscene. And yet there's this whole other side that he keeps getting into trouble, and there's these fines. And so what does that mean? He pays the fines, and the fines are the grants, and the grants go back. And then it's just back and forth.
I mean, it's like it's like where when you think of parking tickets, right? There are really rich people who look at parking tickets simply as that's the price of parking. Because that's what it is, and when you penalize people in a way that is not commensurate with their wealth, then it just becomes the price of doing business.
What's Elon Musk worth right now?
Oh my God, it's got to be in the high 100 billions. It's 177 or something.
Here it is.
Crazy.
$267 billion.
There you go.
Okay, so this was 1%. This was 1%.
Yeah.
What?
1% dilution in his wealth went to getting a 9% stake in Twitter in Olive Garden, which he should have actually done. That would have been funny.
Okay, serious question. When he made the trade to buy the 73 billion shares, was he at an Olive Garden? Now that would be news.
Now that
I want to write that news. Story.
Yes.
Yes. Anyways, that was okay. I think we've solved all the world's problems on that one.
We have. Let's move along to the next story here because it actually does have to do with our wonderful careers and what we do for a living here. And this is about podcasting. We are going to link to two news articles here for this discussion here. One seems to be a bit of a rumor. According to a recent link, it comes to us courtesy of Digital Information World, which I didn't really know about before, but do now. And the article opens up by saying YouTube was once considered to be little more than a place where people uploaded random videos to share with others, but it very quickly became a central hub for content because of the fact that this is the sort of thing that could potentially end up allowing people to post things they created without having to jump through any hoops. Wow, was that a run-on sentence?
Oh, that's one sentence.
That is
Wow,
one sentence.
Now we know why nobody knows about Digital Information World. Yes. No, I'm sorry. All respect. All respect. No. They just need an editor. Copy editor.
Exactly.
Great.
So the article goes on to say that YouTube has been thinking about getting into podcasting. And it says a large portion of YouTube creators already make podcasts in which they post on various platforms, but they don't, and then maybe they also post it on YouTube. But it seems that from the leak that this person is actually not mentioning here, basically the leak says that YouTube may add a tab to its channel or its platform that is for audio only content and become a part of paid subscriptions and part of a podcasting platform, much like Spotify and Apple Podcasts and those kinds of things. We're going to pair that, by the way, with an article that is imminently better, that comes from our good friend Tom Webster at Edison Research. And of course, Tom writes about all things podcast. And in his newsletter, I Hear Things, he writes about what to do when the line stops growing. In other words, he brings forth some of the fantastic, and by the way, just really fantastic research that Edison does on podcasting and audio technology. And the research found that for the first time in 9 years, podcasting didn't grow. Why not? And what you can do about it. And basically, he goes on a long-ish article, as Tom does, and talks about, yes, after 9 years of steady growth, the percentage of Americans who listen to a podcast every month dipped from 41% to 38%. So consider from 2014 through 2021, it was at 15, 17, 21, 24, 26, 32, 37, 41% in 2021. And for the first time, literally since they started measuring it in 2008, it has dipped back down to 38%. And he goes on to then describe what he thinks is the reason for that. So taking these two things together, Mr. Polizzi, what do you think about the state of podcasting right now?
Let's talk about YouTube first. YouTube, even though people don't talk about it this way, is already the number one place that podcasts are listened to. It's already. They just don't measure it that way because everybody looks at Spotify and Apple and Stitcher and whatever else you're listening to. But let's be honest, most people are listening to this stuff on YouTube already. Now, if they are going to really go after that market in a different way, like, for example, and focus on findability but beyond just the subscriber bases, I think that there might be an opportunity there. But I don't see why they would want to create a tab or anything like that. People are already listening to this stuff. They already have their favorite finds. They're listening to it on whatever player they're listening to it on, and it happens to be YouTube. So I honestly don't think they're going to do anything about this because it fits them just fine right now. I don't see any reason to do.
Look, well, this gets to a little bit of what Tom talked about in his article, which is findability, right? One of the things that he mentions in his article is some of the technology, for example, that Spotify is now testing in terms of how you find a new podcast is not dissimilar from the way TikTok has basically, as he says, you thumb your way through TikTok and you start to literally it just things start, right? And so you have to capture your attention within seconds. And apparently Spotify is testing an interface that would do something similar to that, where as you browse through podcasts, it would start playing and you could listen to the first 5 seconds of something before you theoretically thumbed over. And so it would provide for some level of discovery of new shows and therefore theoretically some, further growth in the way that podcasts are found. And YouTube, if they decided to do let's say a YouTube app, like, because let's face it, I don't know about you, but Spotify I've tried, Apple I've tried, and a couple of the others I've tried in terms of podcasting apps as a consumer of podcasts, and they all suck. They're not good in terms of how I manage my subscriptions, how I see what's going on, where do I have my shows, what's new, what's come out, how do I get notified of that? And, it's not unlike the bad interfaces right now that you see in things like, let's be honest, Netflix's interface is not great. Is not, in terms of discovery of new shows, it's not a great interface. Nor is, Peacock or Hulu or any of them. There's a few of them that are a little better than others, but that interface has not yet been really optimized yet for findability of a lot of content, which of course is the world of podcasting. So if YouTube could figure this out with the power of Google search behind it and findability and a YouTube podcasting app, I wouldn't put that as a small thing. I think they could actually do something interesting.
I'm not saying there's not an opportunity. There's a huge opportunity, but the fact is Google doesn't have a good track record with new products these days. Because most of Google products that we use are over 10 years old. You use any Google products that are new?
Well, that's a great point. Well, you've made that point before, which is
so they're going to go create a new product.
They're not innovating.
Where's the innovation team going to do? Who's going to do that? They'd be better off buying something. And there's just not something out there. By the way, I use Overcast, and it's the best one that I've used. I haven't used them all, but it's definitely better than Apple Player, and it's definitely better than Spotify in my opinion. But
all right, well, I'm going to try that because I have not gotten into Overcast yet. I've heard it's good.
It's very simple. It works really well for me. The take on the listenership. I have a couple things on that. First of all, you could just say that 22 is normalized based on the abnormal 20 and 21, right? You could just say that.
Sure.
So that's one. Yeah. That's one argument. The second argument is human beings, last I checked, aren't getting more than 24 hours in a day. It's just already a lot of media out there. It's hard to add more.
Oh, haven't they told you that that's available?
If there's been a 25th or 26th hour, I certainly would want to hear about this.
I'm sorry.
Maybe Elon Musk can come up with more hours.
That's
in the
who
day.
Started it. That's
I'm sure.
The whole thing.
But here's the truth, and you know this as well as anyone. TikTok is sucking up all the oxygen out there for attention. I mean, I don't know if the zombie apocalypse is around anywhere, but everybody I know is spending a lot of time on TikTok, and whatever they're doing is magic. It's Eric Clapton. I don't know. It's a lot of stuff going on there, man. So it's hard to compete for podcasts to compete with TikTok. It's hard for anyone right there today to compete with TikTok. I got my youngest that's been saying you've got to launch a TikTok channel. I'm like, nobody wants me to launch a TikTok channel. And I said, I'm scared to even download it and try it because I know so many people that they'll spend hours on it. And I don't know if I want to spend that time or get sucked down that rabbit hole. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's like, where is attention moving, right? And as commuting comes back and as podcasts have come back, I think that competition has thickened, right? With streaming services certainly, and with other elements that aren't podcasts, right? In other words, if we're not commuting as much, which we're not because, there's so much remote and work from home now. And if that population is more, let's say skewed toward podcast listeners, which I could see that. I don't know that for a fact, but I could see that feels right. You could see the dip being just reflected in that, right? Just to your point, right? This is the first normalized year after an unnormal year where okay, people are going back to work and they're having to work, but they're working in a new way. And so therefore podcasting isn't as big a piece of my life. And that's true for me. I'm with the, for example, my consumption of podcasts has gone down, not because I have purposely made a, commitment to doing less podcasting, but because I am traveling less. And so my work life has normalized at this point to where I have normalized my work around my decrease in travel, but it hasn't given me more time for podcasting. It's given me more time for other things, right? And so that what I was listening to while I was traveling is basically gone. So all those activities are now gone. Podcasting and, I used to play computer games far more than I haven't opened up a computer game in 2.5 years since pandemic started. I haven't opened up a computer game. And so I think those are the overriding trends.
Actually, it's worth reading this amazing article from Tom just for the because he talks about, and I haven't looked at the new interface for Spotify, so maybe they figured out, but he's saying that it's a lot like the TikTok experience. And he talks, it's funny. It's funny that this very long article that he puts together, half of it mentions TikTok. Because so you're seeing this attention suck going in that direction from all age groups, by the way. It's not just the kids.
Yeah.
It's everything. And it's frankly scaring me. I am literally scared right now for the future of the world.
Of what?
Because of the amount of time that people are spending on this stuff. I'm totally serious. I'm not laughing at this. I am totally serious. It seems to be a problem. This is get off my lawn.
Not too much.
I feel it boomer-esque right there.
Too much. And these children that you spit on as they try to change their world.
Darn rock and roll racket.
To your consultation, they're quite aware of what they're going through. Changes.
Wow, very nice.
Yeah. All right, let's move along here and get to another story really quickly here, which is coming to us courtesy of the New York Times. This is an extension of something we were talking about last week, and it's a great, interesting story about a new startup, but more interesting is for what it doesn't actually talk about. So the headline of the article is Tech Startup Aims for Artists' Royalties for Resale. The subheadline being Fairchain, which is the tech startup in question here, generates digital contracts and certificates of title of authenticity, allowing artists to track their work and share in secondary market proceeds. In other words, as the article opens up, you could be an artist, and previous efforts to address the idea for example, selling a painting that, is in $900 when it first sells and then flips as it rises in value for $85,000 20 years later, the artist isn't getting any piece of that. Well, previous efforts to address this have failed, but now as musicians and other creative producers assert more control over their future sales and blockchain technology has allowed for easier tracking of intellectual property, two Stanford alumni have started a business to help visuals artists reap the financial rewards when their work is resold privately or comes up for auction, in some cases at many multiples of the original price. Blah, blah, blah. The article goes on to talk about this technology that we're talking about here, basically saying that the idea is that the technology enables artists or their galleries to generate digital certificates of title and authenticity, which are encrypted and recorded on the blockchain. Does that sound familiar? When a work is resold or sold, the certificate transfers to the new buyer only after they sign an agreement, committing to remit a percentage of the transaction value to the artist who created the work. So basically, the article then goes on to describe this. And you know what word doesn't ever appear in this article is the word NFT. But that's exactly what we're talking about here. And this is what we were talking about last week, Joe, when we talked about the idea that NFTs may not be called NFTs in the future. Well, here's your first example of this, which I just loved, because here we're talking about a smart contract getting done on the blockchain, and not once did the word NFT came up. It was just basically using blockchain to manage the resale in a smart contract that can facilitate resale and selling and making sure that the fractionalized ownership goes back a little bit to the artist. And so what did you have any take on this?
Yeah, I first thought, we talked about this on this podcast already, just about the collectibles industry. that if I get my Mickey Mantle, I'm just thinking Mickey Mantle, but Mickey Mantle autographed baseball, yes, that used to have a certificate of authenticity that could be forged in a million different ways, and I never knew that was it. Well, every one of these things now today and henceforward is going to have some certificate of record on the blockchain. It's called a non-fungible token that will show proof of ownership. And we were also talking about the example of Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank that's launching this whole line of luxury watch non-fungible tokens, if you will. So if you own a really nice watch, I'm talking about like $10,000 plus, you would have something on the blockchain would say that that's yours. So if somebody steals it or something happens, and this was really important for the insurance industry. So insurance they're going to get their hands on this because there's a play there, right? So there's lots of things going on in all these industries. And why is this going to happen? It's all about money. Somebody's making money somewhere and somebody's going to get paid somewhere. And this is fine. I love this idea that if you're an artist or a musician or something where you create some kind of a good and you want to show that ownership and get paid over time, it comes with the non-fungible token. I like that. But really why this thing is going to start heating up is because there are a lot of people that are going to make a lot of money off of this to create the environment behind making this happen.
It's absolutely true. And here's my prediction. So here's my prediction for, let's call it 24 months out, maybe 36 months out. Remember we were talking last week and we were like, well, what's it going to be? Like what would the word be, right? What word will replace NFT for this? And I don't know.
Oh, I thought you were going to lay it on me.
But no. But here's my prediction. It's almost that good. It's not quite that good, but it's almost that good. My prediction is that there will be a company. I don't think it's going to be this. I think. Well, maybe we'll see. We'll see if this Fairchain company can do it. Can be the one. But whatever company like kills it here is going to be the Google of this thing, and we're going to their name will become the Xerox, the Kleenex, the Google. So you'll just say, oh, just Fairchain it. And basically you're just going to, they're going to become, there will be a company that slays this in a way that becomes sort of the standard. Remember when you used to say, oh, just MapQuest it.
Yes.
Right. And of course you don't say that anymore because MapQuest doesn't, but we used to for a very short period of time. So whatever company comes along and slays this particular thing will become the
Kleenex.
There's a word for that, and I can't remember. The Kleenex Twinkies. Or the Google or the MapQuest or the Xerox or those kinds of things. The aspirin of this particular thing called making an NFT or making a digital certificate.
I wish it was like Tylenol or something like that. That would be perfect if it actually was.
Yeah. I think it will be. This is what this article reminded me of is that it's usually going to be some company and a brand that makes it a verb, right? That creates the verb.
Yeah, can you Ziploc that up for me?
Yeah, right. There you go.
You might be right about that. If you it would make sense that there's some centralized entity that would help this decentralized mission or philosophy or ideals or whatever we want to call it come to fruition. I really believe that it's going to need to happen.
That's the interesting thing here, though, is that that's, is it going to be a centralized thing or a decentralized thing? You know what I mean? It's like, it may be a centralized thing that uses a decentralized infrastructure, right? In other words, it could be a open source kind of idea. Not unlike a Linux or something like that, where you have different flavors of it in a open source or open access way, but it could also be just as centralized, right? It could be just as centralized as a Google.
Yeah.
A private blockchain, if you will, because there's nothing saying this has to be on the Ethereum network or that this has to be on the Bitcoin network or it has to be on some public network. That you could just as easily create a private version of a blockchain network just for this, right? Just for whatever, this particular, and then it becomes highly centralized, which is arguably then why are you using blockchain technology to do it? But, there's a whole other relative
Well,
thing
I mean, if you look at all the amazing projects, decentralized projects that have theoretically happened on a centralized platform called OpenSea.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
So I
right.
think that sometimes to get things done, you need a leader or a group of leaders with a mission, if well funded, that can make something like this happen. And so I think at the end of the day, people ultimately won't care what the entity is to make
That's
that
what
happen.
I totally agree with that.
I don't think they're going to care.
Totally
I think
agree
that
with
you have a group of people that the believers that think that everything in the world should be decentralized. I am not one of those people. I think that there is room for decentralization. We don't want a middle. Let's say we keep using decentralization. You don't want a middle entity involved in a transaction, and sometimes you do. So sometimes you feel like a nut, and sometimes you don't.
You've been saving that up.
I have. I had it written down here. I was like, I'm really going to go for it.
You have been
for
saving
8
that.
episodes.
But I agree with you. I agree with you 100% because I lived this. I absolutely lived this. I think I've told this story before. When I first started out as the CMO of a software company was 2001. And we were selling this new concept called software as a service, cloud computing. And the whole idea, the technology behind this was something called multi-tenant, which meant that basically it was one instance of the software that would run in the cloud and that all the clients would access. And so you would basically, anytime you did an upgrade, you would upgrade the software in the one place and everybody got the upgrade at once. And we thought that was so important. We were like, oh, this is the key. This is the future. This is the future of the internet. It's the future of the web. And we would go out to our venture capital people and we would talk to finance people and nobody cared. Nobody cared about that stuff. And then competitors started to come out. This is when Adobe and Microsoft and companies like OpenText, they came out with their cloud services, their hosted, what they would call managed services or hosted services. And they would say, oh yeah, of course we're a software as a service. But it was basically just installed software available in some hosted data center somewhere. Mm-hmm. So in other words, if they were going to update their software, you'd have to go literally box by box by box by box in every data center and upgrade that software. And it used to make us so mad because it wasn't pure and it wasn't multi-tenant, and we used to talk about how that wasn't true software as a service. And guess what? Customers didn't care. They were like, can I access it through a browser? Yeah. Do I have to host it on my site? No. Well, then I don't care. I don't care what efficiencies they get for upgrading in one place. And then you would start to argue about performance and reliability, and then they don't care. They don't care. And I think this is exactly the same thing. Customers, to your point, aren't going to care. As long as they get what they need, as long as they get the service that they need, they won't care. Yeah,
just look at the number of people that never update their apps on their phone, and look at the number of people that play Wordle. I'm serious, right? They didn't do anything flashy. They didn't put an app together.
Yeah.
You got to go to the browser yourself.
Could literally go view source and see the answer to the puzzle.
It's like, yeah. But nobody cares. It just doesn't matter.
Nobody cares.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah, there we go. All right, last story before we actually jump into some rants and raves here. This one, interesting story coming to us. Do you know this site, Spiny Trends? Do you know this
I do
site?
not know Spiny
This is
Trends.
No. This is my first introduction to it as well. So this comes to us courtesy of trends.spiny.ai, Spiny Trends. Can't really speak to it one way or the other, but the article is very interesting.
Spinier? Is it Spiny.ai or is it Spinier?
Oh my God, Spinier.
Is it like, it's like Spanish beignets. I'm sorry, I need to go home.
Spinier. The article opens up with the headline that says the pros and cons of a journalist developing a personal brand. And opens up by saying, before social media, the majority of journalists were known only by the publication they worked for. But as publishers came to rely on social networks to distribute their content and journalists pushed out their own content and opinions, many have developed their own personal brand. Is this a positive step toward protecting and empowering underrepresented voices, or does it risk crossing the line of impartiality? The takeaways. So this whole started with veteran New York Times reporter Maggie Haberman and the Washington Post internet culture reporter Taylor Lorenz that got into a Twitter fight this month over the importance of building a personal brand. The spark for the spat was an article in Business Insider that said the New York Times is having problems retaining staff because of its prohibition on outside projects. Lawrence, that's the person from the Washington Post, was quoted in the article as saying, "The longer you stay at a job that restricts you from outside opportunities, the less relevant your brand becomes." Maggie Haberman then dismissed that idea as nothing more than the desire of some folks to get more attention. Then, writing on her Medium page, NYU journalism professor Elizabeth Spears took the side of Lawrence instead of Haberman. Well, she also has no idea what it's like to face the kind of job insecurity people's Lawrence's age do, and barring some scandal, will never be fired or laid off by the Times. Basically, the article then goes on to talk about the ups and downs or the pros and cons of personal branding for journalists. And, more than anything else, this is really just a discussion point. What side do you come down on this, and what do you think?
As in all things that we discuss, there's room for both sides. There's room for a media company like the New York Times that wants to, keep their journalists from not doing these outside projects. And you've got other ones that are going to put together a group of influencers, and through that, they're going to create some kind of a media brand, and they'll probably be more popular or more successful because those journalists have an audience. But have you seen the movie The Tender Bar by chance? Have you seen?
Yes, I have.
So you saw George Clooney directed that, and but Ben Affleck is okay. Yep. So good. I'm glad because you and I are the only ones who've seen this movie. That I thought it was interesting I'm not going to give anything away, folks. But the character, the main character, gets a job at the New York Times. And with the number of friends that he talks to, including his uncle, you can tell that they're all saying, "You are settling by working at the Times instead of being a writer and writing a book." And they make this distinction throughout the movie and say, a book is yours. You're building something. You're doing something amazing. Or you could settle and work for the Times. Now, I'm not saying that's the thing, but that is a really strong, compelling argument for a content creator, for a journalist today. To actually create your own thing, go out and build something, build your own audience, have your own revenue streams, do something amazing without having some larger entity, tell you how you should do things in a certain way. So that I thought about that movie, and I just thought that in listening or reading through this tweet spat, there's that level of importance where some people want the security and they want to say they work for the Times or they work for wherever they want to work, or work for Google or Cisco. And there's a lot of people out there that say, I want to do it my own way and I don't want to work for anybody else. And I want to build my own audience.
Right.
So there.
Well, and there are plenty, and maybe I dare say even most, that look at that as a process, right? Where as a young writer and a young, a young, inexperienced artist, let's call it, I'm going to go work for the Times or the Post, because that is the pinnacle of writing for an institution. Going to write for Vogue or Vanity Fair or New York Times or the Washington Post or the San Francisco Chronicle or the LA Times or, Guardian or there are a number of publications out there that are considered, at the highest levels of the form. And you go right for those places because that's where you strive to really practice your craft at the highest level. And then at some point you do that. And what's the next level up? Well, the next level up is, of course, to, claim your space, right? To claim your space on the wall, to put your name on the wall. And so many, the road to the authors that we now see that are the most famous authors in the world that have written biographies and journalistic pieces and books and histories and all of the things that might come out of a newspaper reporter are all, graduates of the times, and you know, including the Maggie Habermans,
Yeah.
right? And so, you know, you look at those people and you say, at what point do you do you go out on your own? And of course, that's built into the business model of a New York Times. They you know, that anybody for 1 second that doesn't think that as those people become more famous, you know, Woodward and Bernstein sort of famous, you know, that thinks that the brand of the New York Times isn't riding their brand as much as they're riding their own, then they're fooling themselves, because they absolutely feature that. You know, that's having a media company have a famous DJ, or having a television company have a famous TV host, or having a famous late night host, or having a famous newscaster. All of those things they ride those personal brands. The only question becomes, when does your personal brand become yours to the point where you want to start doing your own things outside the purview of a publication? And I fully on the side of Lauren's and the NYU school journal instructor, who say basically that's for us to decide. And in today's world, it's even more important, because if you're going to have career longevity, you have to be able to do that. So I don't even know what the argument is, to be quite frank. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of a. So the good thing is there's opportunities to do both. It's probably harder to get in with the New York Times and those types of organizations, because there's not that many available. Your odds might even be better going off on your own. But if you want to follow that path, great. Yeah, yes, there's many examples of that happening and working, and wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, it happens in every career, right? I mean, you know, the number of people who have, you know, that have failed their way through various brands. You know, Apple used to be this for so long, right? I don't know if it's still this way or not. I've been out of the hiring scheme for, you know, forever. But if you worked at Apple, if you went and did your time at Apple, and, you know, that was a thing, by the way, you know, doing your time at Apple, you know, Apple has historically, and again, I don't know if this is the current situation. I don't really know anybody that works at Apple, but what I used to know about Apple was it wasn't a terribly pleasant place to work. It was an amazing place to go build your skill sets.
You get it on the resume,
abilities, and your resume, but it was not the place where you were going to be loved and cultured and nurtured. You know what I mean? It wasn't that kind of place. The same thing in consulting, right? The same thing in financial services, right? You go to Goldman Sachs, not because Goldman Sachs is such an amazing place to work, although it might be, but you go to Goldman Sachs so that you get Goldman Sachs on your resume. That's why you go get an MBA. It's, you know, you leverage the brands of the places where you are in order to bolster your own brand. It's been that way in career building forever, and for every career. You're a doctor at the Cleveland Clinic because you're a doctor at the Cleveland Clinic, you know, and all of those kinds of things just, you know, fall into place, and you start associating your brand with the brand of where you are, you know, where you're practicing your art.
I think you've said it all. I think there's nothing more to be said.
Do you think, really?
I think
okay.
that you win. If there's a winner to be had.
I always do.
You do, actually. You normally do win, because I just get exhausted. I can't keep up with you. I can't keep up. I can't keep up with the number of words you use versus the number of words I use.
I do talk fast. Okay, well, fine. Let's move along then. Let's talk to our rants and raves, where Joe and I go off on a little bit of a rant or a little bit of a rave over something that makes us feel like freedom. Talking like a little John Batiste there. God, I love that song. Or something that makes us feel like, I don't know, we got slapped by Will Smith or something. Okay. So I have a very quick one. I'm just going to go quickly.
You go ahead.
Because I'll go first. Because this is really quick. It's literally just a link that I want to make sure everybody gets. Kathy Hackle is someone I've known for a long time. And you talk about someone who's looks like an overnight success, but has been doing her thing for so long. You know, I've watched her post pictures about the Oculus and virtual reality and metaverses for, I don't know, 6-7 years. She's been doing it in relative obscurity, and is now because she's, because of the obvious, is in high demand and has become quite the thought leader in the space. And she's got an interview with McKinsey, the consulting company, and their McKinsey Digital. And it's basically an interview with her talking about the metaverse, how it's evolving, and how business strategy is evolving along with it. Wonderful interview. Of course, it's wonderful because it's Kathy. And it's a really good sort of overview of metaverse and what it means for business strategy and those kinds of things. So just recommend it, but mostly it's just a shout out to Kathy because she's such a great person.
Absolutely. And a good article as well. And I have, it's actually, it just feeds on what we were talking about the 2 stories ago. I watched this movie called The Hero. Have you seen The Hero with
I have not.
So it stars Sam Elliott, and it's sort of a Western comedy romance. It's weird, not comedy. I mean, they say it's a comedy drama, but I didn't think it was all that funny. But it was interesting because the character really struggles with the fact that does he really wants to go and get an acting job like you would normally get. And he's been in the business for 40 years and he's feeling bad because he doesn't get the acting job. But he's really drawn to this idea of creating his own movie, and that he's obsessed with, and that's the idea, that's the name. He's like obsessed with this thing that might be called The Hero, this movie, and it goes back and forth, and he's like dreaming about this thing. And I just thought that if you were a content creator, you should watch this movie, because this is, I think in a lot of cases, you've got content creators and content entrepreneurs that really go back and forth. They're like, oh, I want the book deal. I want the influencer deal. You want the thing that's going to say that you made it, like almost like he wanted to with this acting thing. But at the same time, you know better, and you know that you should be building the thing, right? You should be writing your own book, building your own audience, creating your own thing at the same time. And it's very, very difficult. I talked with a content creator the other day that was saying that sometimes when you're a content creator, you get distracted because somebody puts a deal in front of you, and then you go that direction, and you stop working on the business model of actually building something and building a brand and building a business. And I just watched this movie. Of course, it has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but that's what I'm thinking about because I think about and obsess about this all the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the thing between, do I want to be just a content creator and get some deals, or do I actually want to be a content entrepreneur and build a business? And it's 2 very different things. And all along the way to content entrepreneurship, you've got people, you got road signs, you've got distractions saying, no, look over here, do this, do that, do this influencer deal. Go pitch this for me, and I'm, as the brand. And I guess it's really challenging to go through that. And that's been on my mind lately about the distractions that a lot of content entrepreneurs go through. I guess the other thing,
there's there's an overlap on that too, right? There's an overlap in that Venn diagram where, being a content entrepreneur could be hustling like that for every deal. You know what I mean? It's like, where, it doesn't have to be one or the other. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be, you have to go be focused over here, or, or take every deal as sort of of an influencer kind of thing. But there's, making a business out of doing that thing, right? Yeah. So it's, yeah, you're so right. I mean, it's just about clarity. It's about clarity and staying true to what it is you want,
what's important to you. That's right. Absolutely. And that's the first question is, what do you want? What do you want to do? Because you can be successful either way. And then finally, just a quick shout out to Annie Shift in the Tilt Discord. She says, very interesting that the Grammy for Best Comedy Album and Best Musical Theater Album both went to artists who released the material on their own websites. No record labels, no productions. Big news for the possibilities for content creators. I love that. I think I'm so fascinated by that.
And one of them was
Louis C.K. won Best Comedy Album. Yeah, and released it himself.
Yeah.
So, hey.
And but did that for not only for the content creator reason, but also for
other reasons, right? Probably nobody would take it.
Right. Which is a fascinating thing. I mean, it will be interesting to see what happens now. I mean,
But that's the thing too, and I mean, we don't have to talk about the Louis C.K. thing, but he can do all this. He's built up enough of an audience. He doesn't need any labels. He doesn't need any distribution. He doesn't need any of that. He can do all of it on his own. So
that's right.
He's in a good position.
That's right. Which is to your point of the first rave that you put out there. That's one of the benefits of building a true business, right? Building a true business with your fans and an audience that is yours, that is truly yours, is, that's where your Kevin Kelly 1,000 fans or 100 fans or whatever it is that, you believe in. That's when you become uncancelable. You know what I mean? It's like, when you've got that loyalty, when you've built that trust with an audience and you don't break it, and you can break it in other places, but you don't break it there, then you've got you can feed your family, right? And
Absolutely.
He can.
And he was doing this early before the whole scandal happened, because
of course, that's what I mean.
Yeah, if he was starting today, he
it would have been hard. It would have been incredibly hard for him to start today. That's the real interesting sign on the wall for me, which is the fact that he took the time to do that and build that foundation and really, and suffer the pain of that along the way, because it didn't always work out for him, quite frankly. But how he did that now is paying off, in the dividends are paying off now.
Well, that's why do you build an audience as from an entrepreneur standpoint? Because you get choices. It gives you
That's right.
a lot more choice. So there you go.
That's right. And as my yoga instructor used to say, no bad choices, no good choices, only choices.
I think I saw something like that. It said the only good ideas are the ones that actually exist.
And
you've done.
And where I saw that?
Yeah. Where?
Where I saw that was on the wall of it was in the wall of an Olive Garden. It's where I saw that. That's where I saw that. All right, what do you got going on?
We brought it all around. Yeah, what do I got going on?
We did. That's what they call a callback in comedy.
Yeah, I'm taking a little break from Creator Economy Expo stuff this week. I'm going golfing, so which is why we're doing this early. This is my annual golf trip. I'm very excited about it. I'm going to be hitting balls in trees and water and all kinds of in sand and all kinds of things that are not, the green or regular grass. So I'm looking forward to that. How about yourself? Nice.
I'm catching up from the week being gone. I got emails. I got some writing I got to do. I got some videos I got to make. I got to, work. And enjoying some tequila, because one thing I didn't get in London.
Oh,
was
yes,
tequila,
not the home for great tequila, in your opinion, huh?
No. We had some good gin, but didn't have any good tequila. So there you go. So it's a work week for me, for sure.
Enjoy your tequila.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, thank you very much. And, if you want to, if you've enjoyed this show and you want to get more of this goodness, of course, get on over to our website. That's thisoldmarketing.site. We'll have all the show notes and all the links that you might need to get there. Hashtag us up, won't you? Subscribe to the show if you haven't subscribed to the show. Download, tell a friend, do all those things. We're trying to grow this audience. We're trying to make our line go up, even though Tom Webster says it's not. But hashtag us up on This Old Marketing and ask the questions that you have. Also, let us know story ideas. We love those story ideas. If you hashtag This Old Marketing on the Twitter, we will actually get our 9% share of that company. And until we meet again next week, just remember, it is your story to tell. Tell it well. We'll see you next week on This Old Marketing.